So I thought I'd try something a bit different today. This is completely unscripted. I'm just going to basically do what I normally do each day, and when I think I see something interesting, just get the camera out and share it with you. So I don't know how this is going to work really, how well this is going to work really, but we'll see. It's an experiment. So welcome to the first attempt. So I'm in the woods today on one of my regular walks. I try to come here every day, partly because I like walking through the woods and being outside, but also because I've got loads of cameras here, and I do regular inspection tours to make sure that they're all okay and they don't need any new batteries or newer SD cards or things like that. So having checked the cameras that are covering the pond, there's a hedgehog, nothing particularly special, often see hedgehogs, but we also have a badger come down to visit. We first pick up the badger having a good old mud bath in the pond. It is really mud. There's not a lot of water there. There's not a lot of freestanding water there. It is just mud. But the badger, I think it's female, is clearly enjoying herself there, throwing mud around. After a while, the badger has clearly had enough of a mud bath and moves off. I'm going to interrupt this video at this point and just wind the clock back a couple of days, because back then I found another badger on a trail on a different camera, and it was digging up a wasp's nest. Here's something of the aftermath of what that badger did. You'll see why this is relevant in a minute. Here's another wasp's nest that appears to have been dug up, probably by a badger, maybe by the same individual. Certainly made a mess of it. Not sure whether the wasps are attempting to rebuild the nest or what. They haven't actually abandoned it yet. Over time, the number of wasps hanging around the remains of the nest declines, and eventually it drops to zero. At about the same time, I came across a wasp nest that had not been disturbed. I figured that maybe the badger might actually come back at some point and dig this one up. So I put a spare trail camera onto it and just left it running. At one point a leaf fell down across the hole, and at first it looked like the wasps were just ignoring it and just going around it, carrying on as normal. But it turns out they were actually systematically dismantling it, and you can see that as the leaf turns, they've taken big chunks out of it and they've carted it away. Eventually the leaf gets small enough that it falls down the hole. And I presume they're carrying on, just dismantling it and moving it away. So back to the present. In about 10 minutes after the badger left the pond, having enjoyed her mud bath, she turns up on the trail camera, which is looking at the live wasp nest, the undamaged one. You can see that her fur is still wet from her time in the pond. Badgers have an acute sense of smell, and I think she's on the trail of these wasps, but she can't quite locate the position of the nest immediately. She can obviously smell something. She knows they're there, but she's just homing in on them. Eventually she does discover the nest, and well, then it's just a frenzy of action as she digs up the nest with those very strong claws that she has. She's not after the adult wasps, she's after the wasp larvae. They presumably are quite nutritious. She has very thick fur, so I don't think the adult wasps bother her too much, but it looks like they do eventually sort of get to her. She does have soft parts like her nose, for example. They're likely to try and sting her there, and I imagine she just digs frantically, and then if the wasps get too close, she moves away very quickly to try and get some respite. How many of them actually successfully sting her, I don't know. So I think she must be quite desperate for food if she's going to this extent. Not too surprising, given that the ground is so dry and so hard. It must be really, really difficult to find earthworms right now. Eventually she bumps into the trail camera and knocks it out of alignment. So that's the end of that. The next morning is a scene of devastation. I think this also shows that it's a good idea to have one or two spare cameras lying around that can just be dropped into position if something potentially interesting might happen. So the day after the badger attacked this nest, I was doing some filming down here, and I happened to notice a rather strange insect that was sort of flapping around about a foot or so away from the nest. So I took some photographs of it. This is Metoecus paradoxus, otherwise known as the wasp nest beetle. And it's actually a parasitoid on the common wasp. It has a rather peculiar life cycle. The adult beetles will lay their eggs on rotting wood, and when the larvae emerge, they wait for one of these common wasps to come along and gather up wood fibres, which they use to build their nest. When it encounters a wasp, it climbs onto the back of the wasp, which then carries it into the nest. The larva then drops off and finds a cell in the nest occupied by a wasp grub. It attaches itself to the outside of the grub and waits for it to develop a bit more. Eventually, though, it actually goes inside the grub and kills it, and consumes the grub from the inside. Eventually, it emerges from the cell just a bit after when the wasp grub would have emerged. So the adult emerges and then flies off and completes the life cycle. Like most parasitoids, it's pretty weird. So that's all for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. You know what to do. See you next time. Bye.